Good evening and welcome to the Posthumous Poetry Series, Part 37. On Tuesday will be Andy Warhol's birthday, and I could probably spend the next couple days talking about Andy and what a truly wonderful artist he was, and how lucky we were to actually have him. You know, Andy grew up in Pittsburgh, where I live, and I could see Shawnee High School from my window, so I often think about Andy walking in my neighborhood and stuff like that. The weird little boy he was, and you know, when I went to the Rijksmuseum and I saw Dutch still lifes for I want to say for the first time, and the subsequent times I've been there, and when I saw the Dutch still lifes, after a while, I began to understand really Andy a whole lot more in the sense of, you know, his period of Brillo pads and Coke bottles and Campbell soup cans, and you know, people were like, "What the fuck is that?" But because they were used to seeing things like Dutch still lifes, which were beautiful. But the Dutch still lifes were basically artists taking things in their environment and painting them. You know, my favorite Dutch still life is Still Life with Cheese by Floris van Dyck, and in which he has this wonderful painting of cheese, different wheels of Gouda, different aged wheels of Gouda, and goblets and wonderful tablecloth. And but that's what it was in his environment. And he grew up in an environment where you would see Brillo pads, and you would see Campbell soup cans, and you would see Coke bottles, and those were the still lifes of his world. So that was Andy, and I say that there are two kinds of people in the world: people who like Andy Warhol and people who don't. And people who don't like Andy Warhol are stupid, and those who like Andy Warhol are smart. Um, Andy was a great painter, but didn't insist on being referred to as a great painter, nor did he want to pontificate as a great painter. So he decided he would become the dumb blonde of painting, and he did a kind of like a parody of Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield in the way he approached art, you know. And because he liked those kind of people, that was his thing. And he liked famous people, and famous people liked Andy. You know, okay, so I could talk about Andy all day. What first attracted me to Andy was when before I knew much about him, I would read it. Was from he would say he was from McKeesport, which is where I grew up as a boy. And to me, that was always like, well, hell, if Andy can come from McKeesport and become Andy Warhol, I could come from McKeesport and be Vincent Zepp, you know. But I found out Andy really wasn't from McKeesport. He was from Oakland. He just used McKeesport as a reference to a place which was even perhaps more desolate and dreary than Dawson Street in Oakland, you know, especially in those days, which is what McKeesport's like. Oh. He was fascinated by famous people, and he also had a real perverse side to him, which I always enjoyed. Um, Once he didn't come to Pittsburgh a lot. I think he's back. They say Pittsburgh twice. You know, he came back. So tonight's poem is about Andy Warhol, and it's Happy Birthday, Andy Warhol. This is called Because They Were Stars. When Andy was a boy, he had a Charlie McCarthy doll. His sex idols were Dick Tracy. He imagined his dick a lollipop. And one day his mom caught him playing with himself while looking at Popeye comics. His fantasy was Dick Tracy, Popeye, and he in bed with Charlie rubbing against him. They say Andy only came back to Pittsburgh twice. Once for Dick Tracy, once for Popeye. Like Pittsburgh, he took Charlie McCarthy with him when he left.